paid anything. So I had to rely on 19,900 to to run my abroad or JAPA paroles. So because of that, I had to shift my gear and then move to switch over to Canada. I made some calls. I have some family members that live here in Canada. So I called and I was asking questions, just preliminary questions about what it's like in Canada. I've never heard of Canada, never even seen pictures of Canada before. So they just gave me like very brief information. It's not really enough because my family members didn't really know exactly what I was doing. I was just kind of asking them questions just to get a general sense of, you know, do you have Nigerians there? Can people survive there? I only know that the country is very cold. So with what they gave me, that was when I started doing my research. I started applying. I applied to, I think, about 3 schools at the time, because that's how much I could afford. If I had more money, I would have applied to more schools, but I started applying. I was doing my research. I finished all of my applications, and I didn't apply in one sitting. Just so you know, I would do research and figure out how much it would cost for me to apply as an international student. Then I would save up money, then I would pay, then I would wait to get paid again, then I would spend the money on another application fee. So by January, let me just say January, I had completed the application fee payment and I had submitted. And at that time, that was January 2015 was when I had submitted my final application to the 3rd school, and I was just going to wait and see because I didn't have any money to spend again. And I waited and I waited. The first 2 schools that I applied to the University of Calgary, which is here in Alberta, and I applied to Memorial University of Newfoundland. That's in the east coast of Canada. I didn't get admission in those schools. The last school that I applied to between December and January was the University of Alberta, which is here in Alberta. So by April of 2015, that was when I was denied admission into the first 2 schools. And then I kept on waiting and praying. Elections happened in 2015. And, you know, as corpers, they used us to do all these presiding officers and all of these things we did. So I got some extra money. Any money that I would get from NYSC, I'll save it, whether it's from election money or money that were paid to run this whole election parole, and NYSC, and then any other person or family member that dashes me money. It was all channeled towards JAPA, and I was praying and hoping that this one school would just give me admission so that everything is not totally a waste. So by June, I think on the 4th of June, if I'm not mistaken, I got an email. I actually got my admission offer from the University of Alberta to come and study for a master's degree in petroleum geoscience. I took the course-based option just because with the other 2 schools that I applied to, I applied for a research-based master's, but I wasn't taken. And I don't know why, but I just felt that if I do the course-based option, it might be easier because I don't really have a good rapport with any of those research. I didn't build any solid rapport with research supervisors, so nobody had approved me. So I already kind of knew at the back of my head that maybe this might not work with research. Maybe it might be faster, it might be easier to get an admission letter if I just apply for a course-based master's program, which is 1 year. So, in June, I got my admission letter, my one and only admission letter from the University of Alberta. I was happy. I told my dad, I told my cousin, my family member that lives here, and they were actually quite surprised and happy because I had spoken to them just once about Canada. And, remember when I said nobody knew what I was doing? Because I wasn't really talking much about what I was doing. I'm kind of person who when I'm doing something, I just go ahead and do it. I'm usually very quiet, but once it materializes, that's when I speak up and say, this is what I've been doing. This is how far I have gotten. So everybody was happy for me, but then there was a question of, okay, can you afford, to pay for your master's? My 1-year master's program at the University of Alberta, I think the tuition at the time was almost 18,000 Canadian dollars. I didn't have that kind of money. My father didn't have that kind of money. I mean, I'm already a graduate. Nobody will give me that kind of money. And I just knew that, I think one thing with me is I'm a very ambitious person. It got to a point where that period, I was not seeing myself in Nigeria anymore. My entire body, my soul, like I will sleep, and in my sleep, in my dream, I will be dreaming that I am no longer in Nigeria. My environment looks like an abroad environment. So I just knew that I would not really last or stay for long in Nigeria, even after NYSC. So I got the admission. I spoke to my cousin. My dad was against me leaving to Canada because of the cost. The funding was just a very big issue for us, or for my dad back then, because there was question of where are you going to get the money? Who will give you the money? You better stay and look for work, and then find out you save your own money, save your own money and take yourself abroad. So because of that, I was already starting to feel very discouraged at the time, because this was the second time that my dad said no to me going abroad. The first time was after secondary school. I applied to a school, I think about a few schools in the US, and I got partial scholarship to study for a bachelor's degree, but my dad said no. That was the first time. So the second time again, I'm done with bachelor's degree in Nigeria, and my dad is still saying no, you can't go because of funding. So I spoke to my cousin, and I asked my cousin, I begged my cousin literally to please talk to my dad for me. And that was what he did. And it didn't really take too long before my dad caved in, because I mean, he will listen to my cousin. They have a very close relationship. So my dad was able to let me go. However, I didn't get any scholarship. I applied for ExxonMobil scholarship and AGIP scholarship that year in 2015. But we're all Nigerians here, so we all know that these things, it's hard to get these kind of things based on merit. Many times you have to know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody on the inside, and they will submit your name or something like that for you to even be selected. So I didn't get any scholarships at all, but I just took a loan. I ended up having to take a loan just for tuition. I took a loan. And at the same time that I was trying to figure out how I would pay my tuition, I was also applying for visa with all of my salary from NYSC. That's what I was using to apply for a visa. I started gathering all the documents. By July, we did passing out parade, 2nd of July. But I think on the 3rd of July, I was on my way to Lagos to go and submit my application for a study permit. I think that year or the year after was when they started the online application, but I went to Lagos to go and submit all my documents. And then I came back to Edo State and moved out of Edo State. So I submitted in July, and 4 weeks later, I received an email asking me to go and do my medicals. At the time, I was in Anambra State. I was in my village. And I went to Port Harcourt. That was the closest, because you can do medicals either in Lagos, Abuja, or in Port Harcourt. And there was only just one place, one hospital in Port Harcourt. So since Port Harcourt is close to Anambra, I went to Port Harcourt, I did my medicals, and I came back. There was a deadline. So it was like an impromptu, it was something that was impromptu. And thank God that I was in Anambra State. I was in a place that is close to where I can easily just like take a bus the next day and just go and do the medicals and come back. So a week after I had done medicals, that was when I received a letter and an email telling me that my study visa was approved, my study permit was approved, and I have to wait to get my passport back. And there's an extra document that I have to get back. And that document or that letter is what I was supposed to go and take when I land in Canada at the Border Services Agency, because you have to clear with customs before you can actually leave the airport. So that's how my Japa story started. This was happening in August. When I got the letter, I paid, when I submitted my application for a study visa, I paid for courier service. So at the time, I was already in the state where my parents live. That's where I was now. I was no longer in Anambra when I received my approval letter. So I was happy, you know, plans were already put in place. Plans were already finalized that, okay, I am taking a loan to pay for my tuition, and I would pay it back immediately I was done, or even when I even get a job, because even though it's a course-based program, I knew that it would be difficult to be able to work and study at the same time because it's very condensed. The program itself is very condensed. So I almost didn't actually make it to school. When I got that letter, that was when I started tracking my passport, but nothing was coming up. I called the visa office there in, I think it's in Lekki roundabouts. So I think I still remember where it is. But I called the visa office so many times, and every time I call, there's a robot that answers, and I never get to speak to anyone, or like it just, I was burning a lot of credit calling these people for my passport and the documents that I need to actually leave and go and study in Canada. And then it wasn't coming at all. School was supposed to start the very first week of September. So by the last week of August, I still hadn't gotten my passport. So what I did was I packed up my things. It was very hurried. I didn't really get to pack a lot. I just packed up just 2 bags and I went to Lagos, knowing full well that that will be the last time I'll see my parents and my family members for a while. So I went all the way to Lagos. The day I landed in Lagos, I went straight from the airport. I went straight to visa office. And as I was just approaching, that was when, you know, they had my passports. I was like, why was there a delay? They couldn't explain why there was a delay. I don't know. It felt like I had to go, you know, this kind of thing where some people are so incompetent, but if you're dealing with them over the phone, you're not going to get any response. But if you show up in person, that's when you'll be able to get a response, because then they are seeing your face. So I was quite upset. I was quite mad. I was ready to like break down the whole place like this. Like, you should give my passport, please. Let me leave this place. But when I went there, they had my passport ready. They gave it to me. I checked everything. They gave me back my documents. Some of the documents that I submitted were original copies. So they gave me back all my documents and the letter that I needed to clear with customs. And 2 days later, that was when I left and I came to Canada. I started my program. Along the way, it wasn't what I thought it would be. When I was studying for a master's degree, I realized that, oh my goodness, I don't think I need this master's degree, because I don't think it's going to do anything much for me. At the time, it was just like I think by November, December, that was when I realized that, you know, this master's degree is not for me. I don't know what I'm doing here. And it was very scary at the time, because it's like I've borrowed $20,000 to pay for my tuition, and I'm suddenly realizing that, my goodness, I feel like I'm wasting money studying for this master's degree. The main reason why I felt like that was because the job market wasn't any better. The job market for geologists, especially if you have a specialization in oil and gas, it's already very tough in Nigeria. So I was thinking that it would be better. I was under the impression that it would be a lot better, but I got a very strong reality check. There are so many factors, and it wasn't any better. Also, there was a crash, I think, in 2015. So it's like I'm studying for a program that it's not bad, but it's just the wrong timing. You know, when you're doing the right thing, but at the wrong time. That's how I felt at the time. I was studying for a master's degree, which is good, but it's just the wrong timing because of the oil and gas crash, right? Jobs were very difficult to come by. And then coupled with the fact that I am not yet a citizen, there's a lot of factors at play when it comes to job hunting in specific organizations or under specific sectors. the fact that I'm not a citizen, the fact that, you know, I'm not white, you know, there are so many things that are working against me when it comes to oil and gas. And I didn't have any experience. I literally from NYSC catapulted myself to Canada. So I didn't have any work experience at the time. So that's like something that was a disadvantage to me in terms just specifically on that oil and gas. So I realized soon enough that I just didn't feel like this program was for me. But because of the loan, I had to just close my eyes and just complete the degree. Sorry, I hope I'm not speaking too much. I hope I'm not going too much in circles. But so I realized soon enough
yes,
that
you're following up, man. Thank you.
Okay, so I realized soon enough that this master's program, it's a good program, but I don't really think that I would survive in the job market or even just get a job in my field. And it's very sad having to spend all that money studying something that you know you would likely not use. But then, you know, at least the good thing is that I was already in Canada. So it's easier compared to Nigeria, right? It's very easy to transition. If you go to school and you study something and you come out and you see that, okay, this thing is not for you, it's not really benefiting, you can easily switch, you can do anything. You know, I must not restrict myself to, I must work in oil and gas. That's something that I realized just before the first semester of my master's program ended. My classmates were still hell-bent on, oh, we must work in oil and gas. That's where the money is. That's where the money is. That's what we're told. That's where the money is. But it's not really a do or die affair. So I clocked that one quickly that, oh, I don't think that I can, like, this place is for me. And, you know, they say, oh, money, money, money. But with the downturn in the oil and gas sector, there's a lot of layover. There was a lot of layover during that time in 2015. So I didn't want to be in a position where I'll get a job today and tomorrow they are laying me off because there is no money to pay or there is no money to work in the field. Or it's a very complex situation there for geology. So I said, okay, I at this point in time, I don't have any other option. My cousin at the time, the same cousin that convinced my dad to let me come to Canada, spoke to me and was like that, why don't you just complete the program and then use that degree to get your permanent residency. In 2016, I was talking about going back to Nigeria. I was willing to move back to Nigeria because I felt that there's no job for me here. I will not be able to get any job here. It was my cousin that convinced me, my cousin and my research supervisor for my master's degree that convinced me to stay back and finish the degree. But my cousin was more on the line of like, try and make yourself permanent here. Don't just try and just study and then go back, because the country was not really doing well at the time. He had great foresight anyway. And so I stayed, I completed my program, and then job hunting started. I didn't get a job in my field. I have never worked in an oil and gas company. The closest thing to oil and gas that I've done has to do with my research project where I worked with oil wells, but that's about it. I've never worked in an oil. I've never even smelt anything oil. I've never tasted oil and gas money that they say there is money in oil and gas. I've never even touched it. I've never seen it. I've never tasted it. So fast forward to 2016, I finished my program, and then in December, I actually extended, I stayed longer than 1 year because I failed a course. When you get a C, in a lot of Canadian universities, when you get a C, especially as a graduate student, it's considered as a fail. So I got a C in a course, and the program that was supposed to be 1 year, the master's degree that was supposed to be 1 year, ended up being 16 months. So I had to stay and be back an extra semester to take that one course that I failed. And so I finished my master's program in December of 2016. I applied for a work permit in December. It took about a month. I got a work permit. Then that was when the whole job hunting started, and I wasn't getting any jobs. I applied online. I applied in person. At a point, I will never forget that day. I went to the mall and I printed my resume, my CV, and I will go from one shop to the other, and I will drop my resumes and say, please hire me, I need a job. I have I have loan to pay back. So I did apply to 1,001 different places. Nobody called me. I think what I got was a job at a coffee shop where they sell coffee and pastries. That's what I was doing. And I was earning minimum wage at the time, because that's it, a lot of these fast food restaurants and coffee shops is minimum wage that they pay workers. So that's what I started doing. I got that job in February 2017, and I started working. So I was like, okay, at least I'm going to use this to start paying, to pay rent. It was enough at the time for me to pay rent, but it wasn't enough for me to save anything. So while I was working in that coffee shop, I was also applying for jobs. Where did I not apply to? I applied to work in a bank. I applied to work in so many different sectors. I was just throwing and just hoping that somebody would take me at least. But I think one thing that didn't work in my favor was that I didn't really upskill myself at the time. Some of those places that I was applying to now, if I had known better, I would have taken some time out, maybe a few weeks, to just learn a course or two. There's Coursera, there's edX. I would have just maybe picked something from there, get the certificate, and then use it to boost my application. But at the time, I didn't know better. I was just like throwing in different places, like you just cast your net wide and hope that you catch one fish. So that's about that. I got a second job in that same year, and it was at a boutique where they sell clothes. So I was working, like for about, I think, 4 or 5 days a week. I would work in a coffee shop, and the remaining 2 days I would work at the boutique and rearrange clothes when people come to shop. So that was what I did. Then I got my first big break in August 2017. So that was when I landed a role in, it's a lab, but it's environmental sciences. They do a lot of testing. So the company itself, they are like a middleman between those oil and gas people, like those field workers, those guys that go out to the field, and the oil and gas company. So you have the workers who go out to the field and fetch those samples and those rocks and things, and then they bring it to the lab. So what we do in the lab is we do all the testing, the chemical analysis, we test the soil, we test everything. Then we do QC, and then we send all the reports back to the company so they can determine whether, okay, that land, whatever it is they want to do, whether it's safe to do whatever they want to do, or whether they will have enough resources. I did that job in 2017. That was in August, and I got a second job. Yes, I got a second job again at a restaurant, fast food restaurant, McDonald's, where they sell burgers and coffees and all these things. So I was working those 2 jobs. The reason why I got a second job was because I was trying to build my bank statement to apply for permanent residency. And also I wanted to get a car. So I was saving for those 2 things. That's why I got a second job. And it really helped. I was in a town, it's a smaller town where everything is close by. So if you're driving, you save a lot of money. I saved a lot of money. I did save a lot of money. At the time, I was living with my cousin in that town or in that city. It's a smaller city. So I wasn't paying rent. That's how I was able to save up all the amounts that I was able to save up. So I worked for, I think, about 6 months. Then I got my first car, then just to ease with transportation, and I took IELTS exam. I had started researching before my 1 year work experience in Canada was up. I had started researching what I need to do to become a permanent resident. So I'm always proactive like that. Like I will make mental notes. I will even write things down like these are things I need. So I realized that even though I didn't take IELTS to study for my master's degree, because I was coming from Nigeria, I was exempt from, submitting IELTS or English language proficiency. I didn't even submit any letter from the registrar attesting to the fact that I was taught in English in Nigeria. I just applied, and I specifically chose schools where Nigeria is exempt from English writing or submitting any proof of English language proficiency, because then that saves you a lot of money. You don't have to spend money taking the exam. But, for those of you that want to come to Canada, just have that back of your mind that even if you don't take IELTS to enter into Canada, when it comes to permanent residency, you must take IELTS. You must show that English language proficiency, because it's part of your point score, whether you're coming in whether you're doing the Federal Skilled Worker Program or whether you're doing Canadian experience, however you're doing it, whether it's within Canada or outside of Canada, you have to demonstrate English language proficiency. So I took the IELTS. I think I scored a 7.5. That was what I scored, a 7.5. I wasn't too worried because I'm already here in Canada. That was my advantage, that I'm already here. So if you were to be someone who is outside of Canada, a 7.5, maybe you might want to take the exam again and aim to get an 8 or an 8.5, because it will increase your point score. But with a 7.5, I think I was good. So I submitted my application for permanent residency. That was in 2018. But I submitted in April. I didn't wait for the 1 year to be up. Now, the thing there is, during my master's, I got a job. I got a part-time job, and I was working part-time while I was doing my master's, while I was doing my project. So I felt that the time that I spent working, during my master's should count towards my experience. The only thing I knew I qualified for in the immigration scheme was Canadian experience class. And with Canadian experience class, you need to have 1 year work experience within Canada. So I added that to the job that I was doing at the lab, and it added up to 1 year. So that was why I submitted my application the first time, and it was denied. They actually didn't even waste time. They just denied me the first time. I was like, okay, maybe this is a mistake. So I applied the second time and they denied it. So I had to call. Back then, if you call immigration, IRCC, though, yeah, it would take some time, but somebody is actually going to talk to you. It's not like now that it's even more difficult for me itself that I'm even here. It's more difficult for me to reach somebody that works in IRCC. But I called someone from IRCC and I was explaining my situation to them. And they told me that because I haven't spent 1 year in my current job, that I have to spend 1 year in my current job. This was happening in June. Yes, this was happening in June 2018. So I said, okay, no problem. So I had to wait till August, because August was when I started working at that lab. So by August 2018, it would be 1 year. So on August 1st, in the middle of the night, was when I now submitted application for permanent residency. It went through. I remember that when it comes to submitting your credentials from your schools in Nigeria, I had to submit my degree certificate. So you can do WES for that, usually, because you have to do this credential evaluation. Back then, it was tougher. It's not as, I think it's a bit easier now to do your credential evaluation with WES, World Education Services Canada. But back then, the way to go about it was not as easy as it is now. I had to have someone. I don't have my actual degree certificate from Nnamdi Azikiwe University, because I didn't attend convocation. I was already in Canada when they did convocation. So till today, I still don't have, I just have my statement of results, but I don't have my actual degree certificate from Nnamdi Azikiwe University. So I had to have someone go and do all those running around, including my WAEC results, to try and get them to WES, so that WES can do an evaluation for me. And that happened in August. That happened throughout the entire month of August in 2018. And I don't know, I will not advise anybody to do this. I always tell people, please do your WES and your IELTS. Like if you want to immigrate as a PR, just do your WES and your IELTS before you submit an application, right? I don't know how it worked for me, but I had submitted my application, and then that was when I realized that I have to do WES. And I thought that, you know, I only just need to use my master's degree, but then I was worried that what if they ask me for my bachelor's degree? And, you know, I don't have it credentialed. I don't have it converted to whatever the Canadian equivalent is. So that was when I started doing it. Luckily for me, they hadn't yet done draws. I don't know if they still do these provincial draws, or rather the federal skilled worker program draws. I haven't read up about that in a while. So I'm not sure if they still do the draws or if they suspended it. But at the time, they did a draw every 2 weeks, but during that period in August, they hadn't yet done a draw. My point score was 460 something. Yes, 406. I can't remember exactly, but my point score was 460 something. At the time, that point score is very good, especially for somebody in Nigeria. That point score is actually very good. What really helped me with my point score was my age, because I was still less than 30 at the time. Also, the fact that I studied in Canada and I was already living in Canada, those were the three main things that really boosted my point score. If I were to have the same credentials and applying outside of Canada, I don't think I would have gotten up to that. I don't think I would have gotten up to 460. So I had just finished WES credentialing and I added it into my application. And then the next draw was when I got the invitation to apply for permanent residency. The cutoff at that point was 450 something, and my score was 460 something. So that's how I just knew that I've already gotten in. I was only in the pool for just a very short period of time. Then I got the invitation to apply. I applied. I did medicals again, because you have to do medicals again for permanent residency. And a month later in September, that was when they had approved my medical exam. And then by November, they asked me to send my passport. Whenever you get an email telling you to send your passport, just know that it's already done, okay? Like whatever you're applying for, they are going to give it to you. So in November, they asked me to send my passport, and then they stamped a one-time entry visa. When you get your permanent residency approved, you have to do landing. There are so many ways to do landing. You can just go to a Service Canada and just run it if you don't have time to travel. But usually what most people do is you have to actually leave the country and come back. Leaving the country means you can literally just drive to the US border and then turn around and come back. That's you leaving the country and coming back. So when you come back, you do your landing at the land border there, or you can fly out to anywhere and then come back. So I traveled for Christmas. When I got my passport, I got the approval letter. Then there was another document that I had to present at border services again. That's Canadian Border Services at the airport or any other international border to do my landing. So I flew out, I traveled for Christmas. Then by January 2019, I came back, I did my landing successfully. About 8 weeks later, I got my permanent residency card. And that same year, they changed the rules again. So I would always advise people to just kind of like make sure you're always checking the immigration websites periodically, because they're always changing things. They can say one thing today and by next month they've said a different thing. So that same year, I was supposed to have stayed 3 years in Canada before I would be due for citizenship to become a Canadian citizen. But they changed some rules or some laws to include those people who came in as students. So it favored me. So at the time, and even up till now, if you come in as a student, when it's time to apply when you get your permanent residency, you only need to stay for 2 years. the requirement is still 3 years, but you only need to stay for 2 years from the date you do your landing, not from the date your permanent residency is approved. So from the date you do your landing, you stay for 2 years. The remaining final year, the last year, they will calculate it from the time that you spent in Canada before you became a permanent resident. So when you were in school, if you come into Canada as a permanent resident already, then you have to stay for 3 years. But if you come in as a student, there will be a 1 year period that will account for that will form part of the 3 year requirement, so that when you receive your permanent residency, you just need to stay for 2 years, and then you qualify to become a Canadian citizen. There is a site, it's a free site that you can go to, and it will calculate the number of days that you stayed, and it will tell you if, okay, yes, you can apply for citizenship at this time, or if you need to wait some more. When you become a permanent resident, even though the requirement is that you can stay 2 years, or you have to stay 2 years, you have to stay 3 years, they are not restricting you from traveling. So if you want to travel, if you want to go elsewhere, go to Nigeria or go elsewhere, you can, but just know that whatever time that you spend outside of Canada, you have to make it back when you come back. So for example, let's say I receive permanent residency today, or let's say I do my landing, they start calculating the time from the date that you do your landing, not from the date that they send you an approval letter. So let's say I have done my landing today, means that from today, I would stay maybe 3 years, assuming that I am coming in as a permanent resident, meaning that I have 3 years to stay in Canada, to be physically present in anywhere inside Canada, and then I can become a become a citizen, or I can apply for citizenship. So if I have to travel to Nigeria next month in October, and I spend 3 weeks, let's say I spend 3 weeks to 1 month in Nigeria. So the time that I would qualify for citizenship, this is 2024. So by 2027, I'm supposed to be eligible to become a Canadian citizen. So that 3 weeks or 1 month that I spent in Nigeria, I have to account for it first of all before I apply. But it's not hard. There's a site that you go to, and you will be able to, like, it calculates the amount of time you spend. You just have to be very correct with your dates, and the way you can be correct with your dates is your passport. So if you travel out, wherever you travel to, they always stamp your passport, right? So you have to be very, very correct with your periods of travel. When you become a permanent resident, there's like this document they give you, and you use it to keep track of your travel. So anytime you travel out, you just put the day that you leave and the day that you come back. It's your own personal document, but I find that it does help, because, you know, as time goes on, you know, you can forget, right? You can forget the day that you traveled, but it should just help you if you write your period of travel when you leave the country and when you come back. And so I was eligible for citizenship in 2021. I did not travel. The last time I traveled was 2019. And throughout 2019, I came back January 2019. So January 2019 was when I did my landing. That was when my time started counting. I didn't travel anywhere outside Canada in 2019. And in 2020, that was COVID year, so I didn't travel. I was even already in school. I was just moving on with my life. And then January 2021 I was tracking it. I think 6 months to the time that I would qualify to submit an application. That was when I started tracking it, and I started doing a countdown. So by January 2021 was when I submitted application to become a citizen. I think I was probably the last set to apply with paper, because after I had submitted my application with COVID-19 and everything, they started doing online application for citizenship. My own application for citizenship took a very long time. Normally, it's 6 months or less, and you become a citizen. They don't used to waste time with that, but mine took a year. It took over a year. So I didn't become a citizen until the next year it took 18 months actually. June 2022 was when I did the citizenship ceremony and became a citizen. And in that time, I was going to school. So I moved on with my life. I moved on with my life. In 2019, I lost my job at the lab. I wasn't working at the lab anymore. I think I spent the entire year just working in that coffee shop. And honestly, till today, I'm so thankful because it wasn't easy. If it was not for my cousin, I would have been living on the streets because I don't know how I would have been able to afford to pay rent or fend for myself. So that 2019, I just worked and I just got so tired and frustrated of this whole job of a thing. And that was when I started looking at transitioning my career. It was between doing tech or going into health for me, Sha, because I just felt that, if I have to switch career, I just want to do something that I know that 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now, I'll still be able to, I can still be gainfully employed, at least, in the time being, before I figure out what I want to do with my life. But at least for that time period of 5 years, 10 years, I want to be gainfully employed at least. I don't want a situation where I'll get a job today and tomorrow they are laying me off. So I just got into that point where I've just completely given up. I'm feeling like, I don't think I was even meant, I don't think it was God's will or God's plan for me to even be in this geology because I don't know how I would survive. A lot of my classmates there's nobody from my class. We were 26 people that graduated from that master's program in my set, and nobody is working in an oil and gas company. Nobody had a big break. In fact, every single one of them is in tech. I'm probably the only person who is in healthcare, but every single one of them is in tech, either doing product management, data analysis, all of these things that everybody else is pursuing. So it was between tech. Tech was just starting to boom. I didn't do a lot of research. That's my own fault. I didn't do a very good research because when I was faced with the option to choose, it's like I didn't want to, if I have to go back to school, I didn't want to go back and start spending so many years in school. But also at the time when, people were talking about tech, all I was seeing was coding and software engineering and coding and doing this one. I'm like, please, I can't code. I'm not here for this kind of life. This whole coding thing, it's not for me. I don't have background in computer science. I don't have background, all this data analysis and all these things. I didn't even know how to use, I know the basics of Microsoft Excel, but I don't even know how to use Microsoft Excel for data analysis. Like, it's just something that is not really entering. There are some things you don't just gravitate to, and everybody must not be in tech. Tech is not the only thing that generates income. Even in this Canada, tech is not the only thing. Healthcare is not the only thing that generates income. But it's just at the time, I wanted a situation where if I'm going to switch career at this stage of my life, it has to be really worth it. I have to enjoy it. I want to be able to enjoy it. 5 years, 10 years from now, I want to still be able to say, okay, yeah, I did it. I still enjoyed it more than geology. But then at the same time, it's still fetching me money because, man, times are hard. There's inflation here and everywhere else. So I decided to just go with healthcare instead. And I took, I think, a course. There was a course I did in anatomy and physiology. I did that for 1 semester, which is 4 months. I just did that as an open class, and I applied for an MPH, Masters in Public Health, but they didn't give me admission. I was applying for research-based masters. They said, oh, you don't have background in healthcare. You don't have background in health science. Like, I was telling them, I have sciences background. But they said, no, you don't have background in health sciences, so we cannot take you for public health. I'm like, do you even need that? Like, I can survive. I can't survive. I'm Nigerian. These people don't know I'm Nigerian. I can't. So I will study. I will learn. I will study it. Somebody suggested occupational health and safety, but I'm like, please, I'm not interested in that. Like, it's just something that just didn't sit well with me. But I was pursuing a degree in MPH, but no school would take me. All the schools, I sent emails to research supervisors, professors, nobody would take me. I think it was only one professor that was even kind enough to even offer me suggestions to even maybe take some extra courses. So I just got frustrated and just shut that one down. And then I looked at going to med school. What will be the requirements for me to get into med school? It's not easy. It's not easy. First of all, I have to take there's this MCAT exam that I would have had to take. And oh my goodness, I think I would have a better chance getting into med school in the United States than in Canada. It's just there are a lot of issues with Canada, but I'm not really going to dwell on that. But I was like, med school is out of it because I don't know how these people will take me. And so what comes after med school? I was chasing colleges, like the 2-year and 3-year colleges. I didn't want to spend so much time in school. And I applied to be a sonographer. I applied for a sonography program. Those people that do ultrasound, people that do ultrasound, X-ray. I applied to 2 colleges for those programs, but I didn't get in. And it's funny because I was praying. I'll wake up in the midnight, I'll burn midnight, and I'll be praying, God, give me admission. I'm so tired of working this coffee job, this dead-end job like this. Like, you can imagine, I have master's degree, but I'm doing a job that is beneath me. But then those were the days of humble beginnings, I would say. So I would pray and kabash and bind and apply. And I was so focused on getting into this 2-year college. My aunt, my cousin's wife, was suggesting nursing. She's a nurse, so she suggested nursing. I have another family friend who is here in Canada. That one too is a nurse, and they were like, oh, why don't you try nurse? I'm like, I didn't want to be, there's this stereotype with people that will jackpot, and next thing you know, they are switching programs, switching to this one, switching to that one. I was like, man, what will people say? What will people say? You see this thing of what will people say? What will people say? It has killed a lot of people, because at the end of the day, nobody really cares. You're just here on your own, right? People are just here trying to make money, to get daily bread, to pay for rent, to pay for bills, right? If you start thinking about what people will say, especially if it's a good idea, something that will benefit you, you start thinking about what people will say, you will not go far. I had to tell myself to just do me, this is my own path, right? They say it's either tech or, I'm not really social sciences inclined, so I didn't want to go into law or government or policy and all those things, because you can also make money from those as well. But I'm just a very sciences inclined person. So I applied for nursing school, but I was praying to get into a 2-year college. Instead, I ended up getting admission to nursing, but I had to start 4 years. A lot of people ask me, that why didn't you do a 2-year nursing program? Because we have accelerated nursing option. So if you have a previous bachelor's degree, you can apply to nursing school for the accelerated option, which is just somewhere between 18 months to 2 years, just about 2 years. The reason why I didn't was because, number one, I didn't do proper research. I didn't do an extensive research. Number two, I would have had to take some prerequisites. So I would have had to do anatomy, physiology, microbiology. I didn't do all those things in my university, both in my first bachelor's and in my master's. I did none of those things. So I would have had to take those prerequisites before I can even get into accelerated nursing. And for me to do those prerequisites, I will spend 18 months. The school that I was looking at taking those prerequisites, you can only take 2 courses in 1 semester. And I needed to take 6 of those prerequisites. So I will spend 18 months taking prerequisites, and I'm not even sure that I'll get admission. It's very competitive. The accelerated route is very, very competitive to get into. So even if you have a 4.0 GPA out of 4.0, it's not a guarantee that you actually get admission to that accelerated option. So I was like, the difference between going to school for another 4 years and going to school through the accelerated option, if you add that prerequisite period, which is 18 months, that's 3.5 years. What was the difference between 3.5 years and 4 years? It's 6 months. So I was like, do you know what? Let me close my eyes and just go ahead and do it. It was painful. It wasn't an easy decision to make, because I'm like, I've spent 10 years so far in geology, only for me to go and do 360 about turn. Because I remember I wanted to go to med school in Nigeria, but my dad did not allow me to go to med school in Nigeria. So I've always wanted to study something in health sciences. I wanted to go to med school in Nigeria. I wanted to go to med school in the US. But my dad said no. They said geology was where the money is at. Now, come to find out that geology is not actually where the money is at. I will never advise anybody to come to Canada and study geology or anything like that. I will never ever advise that. But come to find out that I'm always doing what people are, okay, do this. But what do I want for myself? I have to, at some point, like I'm an adult already, I should be able to make my own decisions. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But we keep pushing until we get into the one that actually works out. But I have to stop this, like this one say do this one, you go and do this one. This one say do this one, you go and do this one. That's them. But you have to be able to now stand and make your own decision and say, okay, even though I never foresaw that I would spend another 4 years in school, but I'm going to do it because I was just so tired. I was so frustrated of just, I just felt like I have more potential than to just end up working in a coffee shop. Hey, no, please, that's not where I'm going to spend the rest of my years, in just doing a coffee shop, like working and earning just the bare minimum. That's not me. So I applied and I got into nursing school in 2019. I got admission to start in 2020. I was like, another 4 years. So, at some point I was like, hey, I'll be the oldest person in my class in nursing school. Oh, hey, God, I'm going to meet with small children that just finished from secondary school, from high school. But to my greatest surprise, that's not what happened, because my first day of nursing school, there was a class, the very first class, we had to do introduction, and I found out that I'm not the only person with a degree. There are people who have 2 degrees that were in nursing school. Somebody already had, people have master's degrees that were switching, and these are not Nigerians. We have some Canadians that already had a previous degree in something else that is just totally out of health sciences, switching over to nursing. There were other people too, like immigrants like myself, that already have previous degrees, but were studying nursing. I was like, okay, so I felt relieved because, I'm not alone. Everybody is fighting for their career here. So I cannot be looking at, other people and thinking, what will people say? I'll be the oldest. I was not the oldest person in class. There is a nurse who was in my class. She was a nurse from Nigeria, but she had issues transitioning and getting licensed, and she had to attend 4 years again after doing a bachelor's in nursing. That's 5 years in Nigeria, and she even did like a graduate diploma in nursing in Nigeria, relocated to Canada, then still had to come and start over again. So sometimes, right, it's the way the system is. Sometimes it's not really favorable for immigrants, and if you're unlucky, you find yourself starting your entire career from scratch again. But even though it can be quite painful, but at the end of the day, time passes and you know what you're looking for, you know where you're going. So it's best to just focus. Like if you want to switch or you want to do something and it involves you actually going to school for 1 year, but you know that by the time you come out of that, after 1 year, you're in a better off position. You know that this thing, getting a job will not be hard for you. I would always advise, like, just take the risk, because what's there to lose? You're fighting for yourself. You're not fighting for others. You know what you want. You know that, okay, this thing, you need to be able to get a job here. So I don't feel like you shouldn't even look at what anybody else is saying. And that's what I did. So I just closed my eyes. I went into nursing school. And that time I was thinking, oh my goodness, 4 years, or spending 4 years. Now the 4 years has come and gone, but my life is different now. So it's just completely different. My first semester, this problem with getting a job and everything, my first semester of nursing school, we're still in lockdown, sit at home. That was when I got my first job in a hospital. And I didn't even, it wasn't a struggle. And ever since then, every other job that I've done within healthcare, in fact, within a hospital setting, I've never had issues. I've never had challenges getting a job. You know, recently I applied for a position, and I think a week later, they called me for an interview. I did an interview. I wasn't fully prepared for the interview, but I did an interview. And 2 days later, I was offered a job, but it was more of a position transfer. It was more of a transfer from one position as a nurse to another position. So it's just coming into healthcare, I have found it easier to transition. I've always been inclined to biology and health sciences and all those things. So it wasn't really a problem for me to adapt and learn. I did anatomy and physiology. So I was coming in strong, you know, like, okay, I've done these things. Like, nursing should not be, you know, it shouldn't be something that I will struggle, because I have a science background. So I know I can do this thing and I can do it well. And I thank God I came out, I've graduated now, I'm working as a nurse, and I've never had issues with searching for a job now. I don't know what the future holds, but I know that for now, at least I'm a nurse, and by the grace of God, I don't necessarily have to, you know, I don't necessarily have to go back to working in a coffee shop, because I never really liked it anyway. And this is not me trying to be condescending or anything. It's just a very tough, it's not as easy as it looks. This whole customer service and, you know, working in a restaurant is not exactly easy. People don't treat you well. Sometimes people don't treat you like you're a human being there. So that's one of the reasons why I swore that I don't want to go back to do that kind of job again. So, I just thank God. I'm just glad that I'm in a much, much better position now, career-wise. And if I wake up tomorrow and I feel like I want to do something else, I don't think it will be a problem, because I now understand, like, all of the mistakes that I made. I now understand, and I know how to navigate myself now. And so, yeah, I'm just grateful. I'm just thankful. So I'm so sorry I spoke for so long. So I hope this story was helpful or encouraging at least.
Wow, I don't know about others, but really, I've learned a lot of things. You've talked about so many things. You talked about the struggles, and you talked about how, at the end of the day, it's good to plan before you make certain moves, know where you're going, understand the implications of the career direction and all of that. So, yes, you've really said a lot of things. I know several people have questions, but I want to start with a question while people prepare to ask their questions. You can either raise up your hand, or you just drop the question in the chat box and your question will be answered. Okay, so the question I have to ask is, okay, so let's say someone is a student and there are several courses that someone can do, but what are the chances of working and studying, and how does it really work out? And my second question would be, what would you advise someone to be doing now? Let's say somebody wants to move over. What would you advise the person to be doing now in terms of getting skills and all of that? What kind of skills? So I don't know if you got my two questions.
I'll just take it one at a time. So the first question is, sorry, please, could you repeat the first question? Hello?
What are the chances that someone can work and study at the time? Hello?
Okay. Yes, I can hear you. So I got the question. Yes,
yeah.
Yes. So the question is, what are the chances that someone can work and study at the same time? It's very doable. I did it, although I didn't work when I was doing my master's. I was still struggling to adapt to the environment, and I was doing a course-based master's. It didn't give me time to work, because it's very, like a course-based master, it's very, very condensed, and I didn't have time to even, I literally landed in Canada, and 2 days later I started school. So I didn't even, everything was rush. It was very overwhelming for me, a lot of culture shock. So that first semester I didn't work. The second semester, my body actually calmed down. Like, I finally started to adjust, but very slowly, very gradually. It was when I was doing my project that I applied for a job, and it was all these like minimum wage jobs that I was doing that I would just use to gather money and pay rent. So it's doable. At the time, well, the minimum wage is not the same as it was at that time. It has actually increased here in Alberta. But to answer your question, I will say yes. But one thing I'll say is to just, like, first of all, to just come in and understand your environment, first of all. You can get a job as a student. It's not any problem. And even if it has to be a job where it's minimum wage, or it must not necessarily be in a restaurant or a coffee shop or something. It can be called, even if it's customer service job or a call center job, right? If it's that one that you do, but at least you know that it is legal and, you know, you're getting money that you used to pay for rent or pay for utilities. I have a friend who I was kind of mentoring her when she was applying to come to Canada. She's been here for just only 2 years now. And the first semester, she didn't work as well. And she was kind of complaining, how is she going to do? I told her, just calm down, first of all, and understand the environment that you're in. And also, you know, the way the education system here is not the same way in Nigeria. The way they teach here, the way things run here, it's not the same way. So we are coming from a system that is just, it's very, I don't know how to explain it. It's something that you have to actually see for yourself, but it's completely different. It's completely on the opposite side of what we are so used to back in Nigeria. So it's best to stay, at least even if it's the first semester, understand your environment, understand the courses, first of all. Then maybe the second semester, that's when you can start looking for a job. And this person now that I was mentoring, she actually got a job in a care home. It's not like the care home in the UK that everybody knows about, but this is a care home, mental health, you know, all these NGOs. And they pay a little over minimum wage. She got that kind of job, and that is what she used to pay the remainder of her tuition. So her dad only paid for, I think, just that first semester, but then as from second semester up until when she graduated, she covered the rest of the tuition herself, which is actually very surprising, but she did it. But then it's all about your priorities and what you're going after. So she worked while going to school, but you can plan it, you can plan your way around it. If you're doing a course-based master's program, you can plan your way around it, right? Just make sure that you have time that you're going to use for assignments. Make sure that you have time that you're going to use to study. So I would always tell international students, you know, don't come here and just be so carried away by the fact that, oh, you need money, you need to get money, you know, quick money, you know, work in a grocery store, all this kind of job, like you need to get money, right? Your priority should always be your studies. If you're coming here as a student, your priority should always be your studies, because you're paying international student fees, which is at least up to 3 times what a citizen or a domestic student would pay. It's not small money. It's a lot of money. Like when I think about the amount, I'm like, the fact that you had to fail. When I failed, I was actually very disappointed with myself, because I had to pay tuition again to take that course that I took before. So that's spending money. So your priority should always be your school, your tuition at any given point in time. If you get a job that doesn't allow you to study, or that jeopardizes your chance at succeeding and getting your degree, then I wouldn't really advise to take that job, just because in the end, it's not really going to help you, because then you're still going to spend more money to complete that degree. And no matter whatever, you know, people say, you need that degree, even if you don't need the degree to get a job, but you need the degree to do your permanent residency. So I would say, when you come here as a student, just be thinking ahead, like, okay, you know, this degree, let me just try and do well. Let me try and graduate, get the certificate in hand, because I will need it to become a citizen. I will need it to become a permanent resident, you know, all those things. So the bottom line is, yes, it is possible to work while studying. If you're doing a a program that is research-based, it is still possible to work. Though with research-based, it is your research supervisor that will pay you. You'll be receiving stipend. You'll be receiving a certain amount of stipend, I think $2,000 a month, or somewhere between $2,000 to $3,000 a month. And that money can actually cover rent and feeding and, you know, the basic expenses, the basic utilities. But you can also, if you feel like you want to get an extra job to add to what you're doing as a research student, that's possible. It's just going to be, you know, it's going to be very packed. That means your schedule will be very packed. But yes, I did it. I studied and I worked while I was in school, but I didn't start doing it immediately. I actually waited for a bit before I started working. Then your second question, please remind me, what was your second question?
Yeah, the second question is, what would you advise someone who probably doesn't have a lot of skills in their CV to be doing before they move in terms of planning ahead?
So in terms of planning ahead, I would say to survey the job market, to figure out, okay, what sectors are doing well career-wise. And by doing well, I mean, you know, those areas that have good career projection. For example, project management, you know, tech is doing well. But some areas of tech are doing well. I'm not exactly sure, but I know people who are in tech that are doing well. Project management is something that has a good career outlook because you can work anywhere. So the best suggestion I'll give is to survey the job market to know, okay, which sectors are doing well. But then when you're also surveying the job market, I always say to look at like different things work in different provinces. For example, now, if you are strongly into tech or if you want to go into tech, right, I would suggest looking into the job market in Ontario, the province of Ontario, because that's like a lot of all these tech giants, right? That's where they are. But if it's something else, like say you want to go into healthcare, you can do healthcare anywhere in Canada. You will definitely get a job, any province in Canada. For example, something like engineering, for example, you can look into, let's say, Saskatchewan or even Alberta, because those ones have like at least a favorable outlook within Alberta here and within Saskatchewan. For medicine, I don't know if everyone here are doctors, but medicine is just something that's just completely different. We can talk about that one later because it's not the same trajectory. But to survey the market and see, okay, what is working well, which provinces have sectors that are actually doing well, and then you can now upskill in that direction. If it is tech, right? If it is tech, you can go ahead and do, you don't have to do everything in tech, but at least even if it is something that's okay, you can use to apply for a job, something that you know that is valuable. Cybersecurity is another one that is doing well, but I think it's more favorable, not just in Ontario, but in BC, that's British Columbia, and also in Alberta here. I'm not sure of all the other provinces. So if you do something in cybersecurity, or if you upskill and do a course in cybersecurity, I feel that should work. Project management is something that I've seen quite a bit of people do. IT auditing, for those people who are more financially inclined, right? You can look into IT auditing and then look at the different provinces where, okay, can I work as an IT auditor here? Is it like a place that is saturated? Will I be able to get a job? I know you can't really trust all these internet sites, hook, line, and sinker, because a lot of people say many different things, but also it doesn't hurt to look into them and also ask. But you can ask me questions. You can ask me questions. I can do the research or just look into things. So I think that's my best answer.
Thank you very much. Actually, I think I saw some questions in the chat box. I don't know if it's convenient for you to look at them and just answer.
Looked at them.
Okay, George, do you have a question?
Yes, I have a question.
All right.
All right, my question is how much does it cost to learn cybersecurity in probably Canada or UK? And because the other time doctor told me to probably take a degree course here in Nigeria, then probably further the master's there. And I want to use student loan. So I want to have a good idea about it.
Wait, so like, wait, did you say take a degree in Nigeria?
Yeah, to take a degree course first in cybersecurity, probably from one of these um tech schools here in Nigeria that teaches cybersecurity.
How long is the program
The program should be about 1 year plus, yeah, 1 year.
in Nigeria?
Yeah.
Okay, there are, I'm guessing that's online. There are cyber security programs that you can take here in Canada. I don't know. Okay, first of all, to answer your first question, I don't know how much it costs to go into cybersecurity. I don't know what the total cost is like, but I know that there are schools that that offer cybersecurity programs. I think at master's degree level or at graduates, like a graduate's diploma, which should be anywhere from 1 to 2 years. So I don't know exactly how much it costs to do that. I haven't looked into the prices or the tuition for that, but I know that if you want to transition, you don't necessarily, if you want to go to school, that's fine. Oh, that's fine. But in terms of for you to be able to come to Canada, you can take some certificate courses that can help you secure a spot. I don't know how helpful it will be in terms of getting a study visa or a study permit, but you can take some of those courses. I just know that those courses, they help in terms of getting a job. And there are levels. I've had a conversation with someone before about cybersecurity, and he has done, I think he's done like just the basic certificate. So to get, I was asking him, okay, how far with cybersecurity jobs and all these things? And he's saying that, okay, this particular one, you need something, there's this level of security you need to get. And you see it in the job description that, okay, you need to do this one, you need to do that, some certain levels you need to do, or some certain certificates that you need to get. But even if it is like your basic certificate, it's something, the one that is free, that will still give you that value, right? The one that is free that will give you that value, right? It's something that will help. It's even, I don't know if it will help you with the study visa. I don't really work with IRCC, but I know that at least you are doing it for yourself. So you're giving yourself that basic knowledge, especially for someone who is coming from a completely different field.
Okay.
I hope I answered your question. If I didn't answer, you can ask.
Yeah, I want to really understand the aspect of, is it possible to learn it as a scratch, like from the scratch in Canada, or like, or should I get a degree course here first before coming over there to do masters and all that stuff? Or like, is it possible to take a student loan then learn it from the scratch over there?
You can learn it from the scratch, but if you're applying, then again, this is where you have to look at the admission requirements. Depending on what you're applying or which school they're applying, different schools have different requirements. There are some schools that will say, okay, maybe they need you to have background knowledge of this aspect of computer science or something like that, or they need you to have background knowledge of cybersecurity, or if you have a degree in something that is related to cybersecurity for you to be able to apply. But you can learn it from the scratch. You can learn anything from the scratch. I was never in nursing. I did nursing entirely from scratch. Though nursing is not like tech but I learned it from the scratch, and I was coming from a place that is completely different from nursing. So you can learn anything from scratch. If you feel that going to school, the cybersecurity school for 1 year will be worth it and would help you in terms of applying to come and study cybersecurity here, I will say take it. If as long as it's going to be beneficial to you, as long as it's something that will boost your application when you're applying here, you can take it and then use it to come. Is it online? Is the school online?
The school is actually a tech school here close to where I'm living.
Oh, it's a
Yeah,
physical school. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So
My final question. Okay, my final question is. Okay, talk.
you can do both. You can do it both ways. But if you're applying, I would say if you're applying to study cybersecurity here, just look at the admission requirements first of all, and be sure that okay, you don't need to necessarily take that course in Nigeria before you come. But if you need to, depending on whatever the requirements say, I would say take it. Or
Okay,
you can also do it online if you want, because I know, we all have busy schedules. So you can do it online. That same cybersecurity course that they are teaching, you can do it online. You can study it for it online.
yeah, my plan was to register for the 1 year course, then also have an online course to for advanced knowledge. Now my last question is two in one. The first one is that when getting students loan, you know, my plan was to probably work and they be going to school. Then what is the like how can someone pay back the loan? You know, is there any disturbance? Is it like this normal Nigerian loan and all those stuff? I want to really understand that aspect. And also, is it possible for someone to work then and also be going to school? Is there any consequence? Is there any advantage or disadvantage of it?
No. If you are here in Canada as a student, as an international student, you can work and go to school. It's an advantage. It's not a problem. The only disadvantage is you are limited by the number of hours that you can work. So I think before it used to be 20 hours. That was when I was working as a student, but I think now they want to increase it to 25 hours. Somebody should correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know if they've actually increased the number of hours you can work in a week. So you can work as a student while going to school. It's not a problem. As long as you just stick to the stipulated number of hours that you can work a week, then you should be fine. If you take a loan, with loans, student loans in Canada, the loans that are here in Canada, it's more for citizens and permanent residents. You have access to student loans. International students having access to loans is through third-party companies. For example, Empower. I think Empower is a popular one. So you can apply to Empower and use Empower. You can take a loan from Empower. When you graduate is when you start paying back. But with these third-party agencies like Empower, there's a certain amount of interest added to the amounts that you'll be paying back, and you can pay every month. I don't know if there is a grace period. I feel maybe there should be a grace period with Empower when you're done. If you take a loan from Empower to come and study, I don't know if they will give you a grace period. I've never used Empower before. I don't know if there will be a grace period, but you will pay back the loan by the time you're done with your studies. So when you now get a job and you start working, that's when you pay back the loan. You can pay back monthly. I don't think anyone can just pay back such a huge amount of money in one installment like that. So you have to pay monthly. The way that is set up here is when they want to give you the money, a lot of these loan agencies, sometimes they might pay the tuition directly to your school, and if there is any balance left, that's what they'll pay into your account. Then they already have your account information. So when it is time for you to pay back, they debit the money. So it's not something that you use your hand and actually send them money, except if you have a lump sum amount that you're saying, okay, I have this $5,000, Empower, take. I'm paying with this $5,000. But if you are doing the monthly payments, right, they debit it from your account So you just have to, as long as they have access to your account, they'll just collect the money. It's like a debit. They just take it. It's like paying an electricity bill. They just collect the money from your account, or paying for your phone bill. They just deduct it from your account, like a prepaid debit is what they call it, or something like that. So that's how you pay the loan back monthly, but you pay with interest. Another thing is you have access to bursaries. There are bursaries, some bursaries that are available for international students. Bursary is money that is given to you by the school on the basis of financial. You have to demonstrate that you are in dire, like severe financial need to have access to bursaries. The amount that you get in bursary, it depends, right? Sometimes it could be 1,000, it could be up to $5,000, it could be up to $7,000 in bursary. But the good thing is that you don't pay that money back. You apply for it. You will only be able to apply for bursary after you have come into Canada and you have started your program. That's when I think sometime in the middle of the semester is when bursary applications open. So you already have to be present in Canada for you to have the access to bursary. Then you can apply for bursary, demonstrate that severe financial need. Sometimes they might ask you for your bank statements. You know, they want to see cash flow and amounts. It's not something to be scary, but they just want to see that, okay, you truly don't have money to pay for your fees. So that's a way to get free money if you're lucky enough.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Somebody, I have a chat. There's a question in the chat here. Somebody was asking, between study routes and job routes, which one is easier and better for an MBBS holder? I would say I want to say the study routes. So you can apply for permanent residency as a doctor and come into Canada. Permanent residency takes a while. It doesn't matter which degree you have. Permanent residency from outside of Canada, it takes a while to process. Sometimes it takes longer than 1 year, sometimes 2 years. So you can use permanent residence PR as a doctor. You immigrate with your family. But I would say if you're looking for something that is faster, the study route is usually faster. So you could apply for something like an MPH, a master's in public health, or you can either do it course-based or research-based. Then when you come here, so you can't just get a job easily as a doctor in Canada, like the moment you land, because you don't have a Canadian license, right? When you come into Canada as an internationally trained doctor, there are some exams you have to take. I think there is 3 of them. I don't know if there are more, but you have to take a number of exams. You have to pass each one at each stage, because it's in stages or it's in steps. So you pass one, then you move to the next, you take the exam, you pass, and within that time you're studying, you know, you have to study, and then you also have to work. You can get a job, but not like a job where you're actually working as a doctor, because you don't have a license yet. You've not yet done residency. You have to do that residency. That's housemanship. You have to do it all over again, right? So, but you can get a job, but it will not be as a doctor. If you come in through the study route, say for example, you get admission to study for an MPH, yes, come in, do the degree. It's beneficial, right? Add it to your CV, but you can be working and at the same time still be preparing, register with, I forgot the name. Is it the Royal Canadian College of Physicians and Surgeons or something like that? But you take a number of exams and you pass each one, and then you now have to do your residency. Usually, most times, they like to throw internationally trained doctors into internal medicine or family medicine. That's where you go and do your residency. They hardly give internationally trained doctors specialties. They hardly do. If you are someone who comes in here and they give you a specialty, for example, in pediatrics, just do special thanksgiving to God. But most times they like to throw internationally trained doctors, they will throw them into internal medicine. So you do your residency there, and residency is about 2 to 3 years, depending on the field. When you do residency, that's when you're not able to start working in hospital. But first of all, is getting that license for you to be able to practice as a doctor here. It's not something that you can achieve in 1 year. It's something that takes time. It takes a while. It takes a while, and it takes somebody who is determined. And along the way, you spend a lot of money, because those exams, they cost a lot of money. They cost thousands of dollars, or it's over $1,000 to take just one exam, and you have to pass. And if you don't pass, you can't move forward. So you have to take the exam again, pass it, then do residency. Then that's when you can now start working as a doctor. But before you now get your license to practice in Canada, you can be doing other jobs while studying for those exams on the side. Any questions? There were some people who raised their hands.
All right, so probably no more questions. I want to use this juncture to really, okay, we have Emmanuel. Are you raising your hand, Emmanuel? Okay, probably.
Yes, I'm raising up my hand.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, good evening, everyone, and good evening to Ada Canada. Thanks so much. You have actually spoken well. Thank you. So I want to ask, okay, just let's see, for instance, somebody that studied engineering course in Nigeria, 5 years course, but that person is not having like no experience apart from the normal 6 months internship program that he did along when he was still schooling, and he want to go advanced as in study masters in Canada. What would you advise that person to do? How can is there any kind of requirements or maybe experience that's what that person needs to have, or is there kind of level of, as in maybe CGPA that person needs to graduate with that can give him or her upper hand to get a master scholarship in Canada? Yes, ma'am.
If you have well, if you finish with a first class, you can, if you're lucky, there are scholarships for engineering students that are given on the basis of merit. So anything that you read on the internet regarding education that they say, okay, this scholarship is based on merit, it means that it's based on your grades. It's a large portion of that scholarship, they award it based on your grades. So if you have first class and 2-1, for example, second class upper, then you have better chances of getting a scholarship. So if it is not, there are scholarships that are awarded depending on the school that you want to apply to. There are scholarships that are awarded based on merit. There are others that you actually have to manually apply for them. You have to manually apply for them. You don't necessarily need, if you don't have work experience in engineering, I would always advise you to just apply. Don't do research, just do a course-based master's in engineering. Just do it will be easier for you to actually get admission with a course-based master's in engineering than to do the research, because with research you need to have some experience in research. So if you're coming in like you only just did the 6 months CWES industrial experience, then your best bet is to just do a course-based program. It's easier for you to get in than for you to do research. And with course-based, yes, you know, the scholarships or those research opportunities where you can get money is more with research, but it doesn't mean that there aren't any, like you can't even get anything. And then again, the scholarship self is just, you just have to bear in mind that you're not the only person who is applying, but you can always try your luck and you will not know until you try. So there are scholarships that are available, but my best advice is just do a course-based program. It will be easier for you to get admission as long as you have 2-1. You just need 2-1, second class upper. They do their calculations. These Canadian universities, when they are they have a panel people admission, those people that look at applications and then they now decide who they want to admit or not, right? There are so many factors, right? So they are the ones, it's up to them to decide. I don't even know anybody who works as somebody in the panel in any school, but it's up to them to decide. They usually have a cutoff and they look at your grades, they look at the courses that you've taken. That's the reason why you have to submit your transcripts. They look at your certificates and then they calculate, they use their own standard here. Because in Nigeria, we have, it's 5.0 GPA, I think, but here it's 4.0 GPA. So they have a way of converting it to know whether, okay, do you meet the cutoff for them to offer you that admission? But usually if you have first class or second class upper from Nigeria, then you can get a seat in an engineering program, a master's engineering program, but just go with a course-based program. You have better chances of getting admission with course-based than with research, especially if you don't have much experience. That's what I did. I didn't have experience and I went in for a course-based master's and I got in. The first application I did, I got in. And I had a 2-1. I finished with a 2-1 from Nigeria too.
Thank you so much, I really appreciate this. But I'm looking at course-based. I know definitely it will be, as in, the cost will be to be high, as in to get admission through, as in that method, the course-based. So that's where this getting a study loan or student loan we come in. And again, if getting this and studying the course like engineering, electrical, that might be somehow demanding, and if you are working together and still schooling, won't it affect the purpose, as the schooling, the reason why you are there to school? Because you are trying to make money to pay for the high tuition fee and also schooling at the same time. I'm just thinking of the managing rate to get the money and to still school at the same time so that you not fail. How can somebody cope in that situation like that?
That's why I always say you have to plan yourself well. You have to plan yourself well. When you're doing masters, for example, you will not go to school every day. It's not every day that you go to school. It depends on the way that the courses or the semester has been structured and the number of courses you're taking. On average, I always tell people, or like international students, don't take anything more than 4 courses in one semester. It's different. 4 courses is like, it's a lot, but it's something that you can handle. I've done 5 courses before, and 5 is very heavy. And I've done 3 before. 3 is like your sweet zone, but depending on how many courses that you need to graduate to have that engineering degree in course-based, right? You can structure your courses, right? But don't take more than 5 courses in one semester. Just take 4. If there are 9 courses, for example, a course-based engineering master's degree usually is 1 year. You do it within 1 year and you're done. So if, for example, you have 9 courses and 1 capstone project, right? You can take 4 in the first semester, take another 4 in the second semester, and you're done. And all that is left is your capstone project. So do 4 courses in one semester, but you won't always go to school every day. There you have like particular lecture days. Sometimes, depending on how they've scheduled it, right? It's all those things is not really up to you. Once you enroll for the course and you register for that course, right, it will show up on your timetable the days that you have those courses, those classes. So it won't be Monday to Friday. Maybe you can be going to school 3 times a week. Maybe let's say you're taking 4 courses in a semester, but the way your timetable is, right, you only have to go to school 3 times a week. You can work twice a week. For example, if you have lectures Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, right? Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, that means you go to school, you spend the entire day in school. You can use that time period to study. If you have any assignments that you need to do, maybe you can take Thursday to do the assignment, right? Or Friday to do maybe half of Friday to do the assignment, and you can work on the weekend. You can work Friday, you can work Saturday, you can work Sunday, then Monday you come. What I did, because I also worked, like my entire journey in nursing school, I was working and I was going to school full time and I was working. So what I would do is first of all, I'll wait, first of all, when the semester starts and I understand my schedule, I will always work weekends because there is no school weekend. What I usually do is, the way my job was then, that position I was doing then, I would work from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. usually. That's my usual shift. So in the morning is when I do assignments. Morning time is when I study. Any assignment that I'm doing, I will wake up early in the morning. I'm an early morning person anyway. So I will start maybe by 7 or by 8. And any assignment I'm doing, I will do it and I will up until 12. Once it's 12, 12, somewhere between 12:30, 12:30, I don't do anything again. I try and rest before I now have to go to work again at 3. And this is on the weekend. I have to go to work at 3. By the time I finish my work at 11 p.m., I come back home and I sleep. So that's how I was doing. Then when it gets close to exams, I don't take any shifts. I don't work during exams. And when it gets closer to end of semester exams, I don't work because that's when I know I need to actually study. So it's something that you can plan your way around depending on the days, the number of days that you spend in school. If it is only Saturday and Sunday that you get to work, that's something. At least you will still get paid for the Saturday and Sunday. If you're in a place where they give you extra money or a bonus because you're working on a weekend, that's even extra money, right? But as long as that's why you have to plan yourself accordingly, and then just always make sure that your priority is, I did it, right? And there are people who are still doing it now. So you can work while going to school, but it's all about setting your priorities straight and don't overwork yourself. All this, you can take overtime if you want to take overtime, but the key there is to always have that at the back of your mind that, okay, my priority right now is school, right? So if it is only twice a week you can work, that's something. If it's 3 times a week you can work, that's something. But let it just be around your schedule. Then give yourself time to study as well, and give yourself time to do your assignments. In terms of assignments and all these things, always start on time, always start very early. You don't have to wait till, if you wait till the deadline, it's not a very good outcome. Again, it's the way the system is. So that's my best advice.
Thank you very much, ma. I really appreciate this. Thank you.
Sorry, I just
Thank you
have
so
somebody was correcting me. This person sent me a message and was correcting me on the cybersecurity aspect. And so let me just correct you. I think it was George that was asking about cybersecurity. So you don't have to do a degree in cybersecurity. You can take some courses and certifications like CompTIA Security Plus. I'll type it in the chat. So CompTIA Security Plus EC Council Cybersecurity. Like, there's a number of certificates you can take. So you don't necessarily have to take that degree.
All right, thank
I'm just
you.
going to type. Let me just quickly type it in the chat while Godwin is talking.
All right.
All right. So, is someone raising up their hand? Maybe that'll be the last question.
Yes.
All right. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah. Good evening to us all. Thank you very much for organizing such an amazing meeting. I just now I became part of this meeting and I love the discussion. My question is, I will start to throw more light on the teaching as a profession there. Is it easy to ask? Let's take it as you have your degree here. It's easy that if you go there, you can be able to work as a teacher there, or how is it going to be? I need her to throw more light on that aspect for her. Thank you.
Please, can you ask your question again?
Yeah, my question is about teaching as a profession in Canada. I would like to know more about what goes into it.
Okay.
Is it easy to?
I don't know much about teaching. Unfortunately, I'm not well versed in terms of teaching. Is it teaching university or secondary school?
No, lower. Not even secondary school.
Nursery school.
Yes, please.
BSc.
Oh yeah. Hello. Hello.
Sorry, I think we are struggling to hear you. Maybe you can turn off your camera so that the signal can be better. All right. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Teaching either nursery or I don't know if they have junior high or whatever there below the senior high level.
Yes. Sorry, please just give me one moment. It's out. I don't really know much about teaching as a profession, but I know that you need to have at least you will need to have a degree to show for teaching. I don't know, to be honest, I don't really know much. I'm not well versed in terms of teaching, getting a job. I don't know what the career outlook is like, but I'm sure there will be some requirements somewhere, somehow, on what it takes for you to get a job as a teacher. There is high school. You can teach in high school, but I don't know what the qualifications will be. But at least you will have a degree in education.
All right. Thank you very much. That's Dominic. A wonderful time. For those who have more questions, we'll send you a link where you can send an email link where you can send in later on you can answer. All right, you can agree with in this. People pay a lot to have such sessions. So we've given it to you for free. So thanks Nurse Dominic for that, and go to her YouTube channel Ada Canada and check out her videos and subscribe. All right, thank you everyone, and have a wonderful day wherever you are. Have a good one. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Same here. Goodbye. Thank you.